The Watchers is the latest horror movie to be released in cinemas, and this was a movie that I was looking forward to seeing. With Ishana Night Shyamalan making her directorial debut with this horror film, I was intrigued to see if she had her father's finesse with the execution of a film that plays on your mind after it's finished, or if this was just going to be a case of nepotism at its finest. With an ending that definitely wanted to pack the punch and visuals that did look pretty nice on the eye, let's delve into the movie and unpack the deeper meaning and what it truly meant. So let's get into it. Here is The Watchers ending explained and review. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. What were the Watchers? So it turned out that the Watchers that lurked in the forest in a remote part of Western Island were a type of fairy, also known as changelings. If you're not familiar with changelings, there's actually an entire TV show which was released late last year which was focused on them. But changelings are essentially fairies that take on the form of humans and live within a forest. This is pretty much what was happening in the movie. Centuries ago, changelings ruled the world as gods, and there was even a time where they lived amongst humans together. However, as time went on, humans did the human thing and banished them to the forest and forced them to go underground, treating them as though they were inferior to them. This is what led the changelings to want to trap the humans in the forest whenever they'd go there and never let them leave. A deep-rooted hatred for the species, but also to learn from them and to be able to mimic them in the best way possible. This is so that if they did ever find a way out of the forest, then they'd be able to blend into society and go undetected. This is why they were set on watching the group that were trapped inside of the coop for so long, because every night they'd observe their behaviors, their interactions, the appearance of them, and they'd try to mimic them in the best way possible. They trapped the humans in the forest in the exact same way that they were trapped in the forest and forced into burrows many years ago. By observing the humans, they were able to alter their appearance, the tone of voice, and appear as the person that they wanted to take the form of. We did hear that it took time for many of them to be able to do it, as the eyes were once something that was difficult for them to be able to do. But after centuries of being banished there, they were clearly at a point where they were able to mimic the humans in the best way possible. However, due to many of them being complete changelings and not halflings like Madeline, it meant that they were unable to leave the forest as they couldn't roam in daylight and needed the security of darkness. What was Madeline? This was something that I did kind of see coming before the end of the film. I didn't necessarily think she was going to be a halfling, but I thought there was the chance that she wasn't going to be who she said she actually was. Madeline was in fact a halfling, and a halfling is a creature that is half changeling and half human. During the time where the changelings roamed freely with the humans, it was said that some humans and some fairies actually fell in love, and this is how Madeline came to be. She had all the abilities that a changeling had in terms of appearance, but she had the benefits of a human, the ability to be able to roam during the daytime and actually leave the forest if she found a way out. Around halfway through the film, we saw that the professor managed to capture a changeling, and on day 300 he was prepared to kill it. However, he wasn't able to. It turned out that this changeling in the video was in fact Madeline, and she killed the professor before he got the chance to kill her. The professor had molded Madeline into being a visual form of his wife who passed away several years before he went into the forest, who was called Madeline. He wanted to utilize the creatures to essentially replace loved ones that had passed away, but he never told her that. Madeline is one of many halflings that are probably out there, and what was interesting about the ending when Mina was with her sister and we saw that Madeline was actually outside in the form of a young girl, it highlighted that there could be many that are out there just blending in with society, not giving themselves away and acting as humans in order to just fit in. Right at the end of the movie, with her flying off and seeking out more of the halflings, it showed that the human side of her had empathy within her and she couldn't kill somebody that made up part of what she was. Personally, I thought it was a weak reason, but it made some kind of sense. Why did Danny die? During the escape out of the forest, we saw that Danny was the only person out of the four of them that didn't make it onto the boat, and there was a specific reason for that. As they were all escaping, one of the fairies transformed themselves into Kira's husband, who was believed to be lost out in the woods, and in that moment, Danny decided to go back and help him, because he thought it was actually him. Kira didn't believe that it was her husband, nor did Madeline nor Mina. So why did Danny? Well, it was said early on in the movie that Danny was the only one out of them all that acted on impulse, and in that moment it was impulse which led him to feel as though he was doing the right thing, rather than logic or the thinking that he should have done before going off to do it. The changeling probably knew that too. It knew to target Danny because they'd spent the entirety of their time watching and observing all of them, so Danny died for that reason. I don't feel they needed to kill him off, to be honest, and I thought it was a bit of a shame that he did die, but at least it made sense. He was also killed in the same kind of way that he killed the bird in the first part of the movie too, showing that he had been getting watched over the 6 months. The purpose of the bird. With regards to that bird that Mina had, it was kind of pointless having it in the film, to be honest. I didn't like the fact that it led the way to the boat at the end and was the guide. This was a house bird. It was in a cage. A bird that wasn't used to the wild yet, and it was able to navigate and lead the group to the safety that they were not once able to get the entire time that they were there. So I thought that was a bit silly, but I felt like the bird was there for a couple of different reasons. The first was because the bird was essentially a watcher. There were actually multiple watchers in the movie. You had the actual creatures, you had the bird watching and mimicking, but doing it in a harmless way. You had the main characters watching the reality TV show, and there was also us watching the entire thing unfold. So it was kind of like a train of eyes watching on and observing. However, I feel the main reason for the bird was to show that the bird was essentially a winged creature that was mimicking and watching, but doing it in a harmless way, unlike the fairies. But I also think another reason was for Mina to have something to care for throughout the movie. We saw that she had a childhood where she felt the guilt of her mother's death due to being a reason as to why they crashed the car, and she didn't feel as though she was a good person. But in this instance, she cared for the bird that she didn't need to care for, and it gave her a deeper sense of purpose. My review of the movie. I thought The Watchers was just okay. I don't think it was anything special, and I think it actually tried to do too much. I think it should have just leaned more into the mythical side of things and the fairies that were present in the forest. The film lacked any real explaining throughout it. The rules that they had to follow didn't make much sense either. Don't turn your back to them. Well, why? Don't go near the burrows, but they went near them on several occasions. Don't open the door after sunset. They also did that too. So the rules were pretty pointless and kind of just felt like they were added to make it feel like there was a sense of tension. But there was none, because even when the rules were broken, there weren't any consequences. Considering it was a horror film, I didn't really get the horror side of it that much. I think the film was probably at its best when we didn't know what the creatures looked like or what they were. When things are left up to our own imagination, it can provide the most chilling and haunting images unimaginable. And when all we had was that, I thought it worked really well. In terms of the pacing of the film, I thought it had a good rhythm at the start, but then just after the halfway point, it felt like it slowed down quite a lot. It became a lot of the same thing, going out, hunting, and then going back and standing in front of the window, so it did start to fall a little flat. I also found Mina just going against the rules immediately a bit out of the ordinary. You're in a forest where you're trying to escape danger, you find a safe haven, and then you go and break the rules. It just didn't make sense to me. I also thought that bit at the start of Mina putting on a wig and playing dress up as she called it felt so shoehorned in so that it could relate to the wider plot. It was just ridiculous. In terms of the visuals, I thought the movie actually looked really nice on the eye. The earthy tones of the grading looked really nice when they were in the forest, and a lot of the close-up shots were glossy and clean. I do, however, think some of the shots during the night were just so dark, especially that opening scene. I felt like I could barely see a thing, but I don't know if that was just the cinema that I was in. It's a movie that I don't think you're missing out on if you don't watch it. It didn't have much identity, and it tried to lean into mythical beings and creatures, but the execution just didn't feel that well orchestrated. It wanted to land with impact, but the message and meaning of the movie didn't land at all. So, there you have it, The Watcher's ending explained and review. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns on your favourite TV shows and movies, then click on the card in the top corner. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. And finally, if you'd like to see what I gave this movie out of 5 stars, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this movie? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.